Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, how we feeling tonight? How's the vibe up in Gville?
B, what's going on, my man? The vibe is good. All, I mean, full steam ahead. Sumrall staying hot.
We're all
Gator
staying
boys
hot,
staying
baby.
hot. I'm telling you, man, it is what he is doing, the waves he is creating, and I love the banter on social media. The man's getting it done. He's so far, he's delivered the things he said on the podium, going back to that faithful day. So, love it,
So
man.
far, so good. That's right. That's right. So I'm going to make an effort to start things. You do a really good job at the end of asking people to like, subscribe, and share, and tell a friend, and all that. I'm going to try to start by saying,
Okay, fair.
if you like what we do here, if you've listened to us before, if you hear us tonight and like, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. I'm going to try and do that at the beginning a little more often here. We're probably going to be switching to video in the not too distant future, so you get to see our faces that are made for radio. I'm just kidding. But we'll we
Kidding,
will
not
be
kidding.
switching this thing over to video here in the near future. Hopefully with the next episode, if all goes as planned, and we'll see how that turns out. But at any rate, trying to get a little more attention on this thing, share it a little more, just get the word out a little bit better as we can. But we really do appreciate everybody that has listened, does listen. We got a really loyal group of listeners, and we really do appreciate that. So just want to say thank you, but share it out there if you can, and you get the opportunity. It is cool for us to be able to continue to do this and have some fun with it and share it with more people. So thank everybody, and we'll go on from there. So with that, tonight we will be discussing a review of Sumrall's player evaluation process. So what we're going to look at here is what has John done in the past and how will he apply that moving forward. So with that, as always, we'll get into our intro, our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, our vision, and our agenda. Our mission is to provide a factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability, and we will cite our sources whenever we use them. And all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org, and recruiting data comes from on3.com unless otherwise noted, and that will happen tonight. So there you go. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss our observation of player personnel decisions as well as on the field execution. All right. So, agenda for tonight, few different topics here. First, with historically, how does Summerall make personnel decisions? We're going to break that down, kind of look at some history at Tulane, Troy, go through that and kind of see what is the way that he has made these decisions in the past. How has that looked? What has that meant? Then we will look at what kind of success has he had as a result of those decisions. We know some of that, but we'll break that down a little further, kind of get into what that has looked like in terms of, has it worked, has it not type of thing. Lastly, we want to take a look at how has Summerall been able to get the most out of his personnel, right? By making these decisions, how has he been able to then maximize what he gets out of them on the field? And then lastly, we are going to give you a recruiting update, as mentioned, to start this thing off. John's been staying hot, so we got to give you an update. We've got way, way, way too many commits since even the last pod. It's ridiculous. I believe there are 8 of them since we last came to you 2 weeks ago. So we're going to give you a quick breakdown on that because it's been popping, and we want to give you a breakdown on that. And then, of course, we'll wrap things up and sign off. So with that, let's get things started. I will turn it over to you. Historically, give me a breakdown in your thoughts on how Summerall has made his personnel decisions previously.
Yeah, so Summerall, and here's the thing that I think a lot of people are learning, right? For a lot of people that I've talked to that have Googled John Summerall, Wikipedia, coaching history, whatever the case might be, the coaching at the helm, we're talking about Troy and Tulane. That's it, right? So, from a history standpoint, from a tenure standpoint, it's not a whole lot. However, as we've talked about in previous pod, he played linebacker in the SEC for Kentucky years ago. Looks like he can still play. But either way, the thing about Summerall that really makes him go is his competitive edge. There's a lot of people who said they're competitive, but this is something that the guy just he lives, eats, sleeps, breathes, speaks. Just you can just tell he's got an edge about him. He's got a chip, he's always got a chip on his shoulder. And he's super competitive. He wants to get the edge. He wants to get any kind of advantage he can. So understanding that of a mindset for somebody is really important when seeing how they evaluate personnel, how they make those decisions.
Well
When you look
said.
at coming, right? When you look at the situation coming into Troy, again, when you look at an FBS school, smaller school, but coming into Troy, it was an absolute rebuild. Okay. Um, I don't want to say you had to start on second base. Oh, but let's just say,
Oh, here we
let's,
go.
yeah, let's just say it was an absolute rebuild. And the thing that Summerall, I think, does very well is he takes a look at all of his personnel outside of coaches, takes a look at positionally, and even though he's a defensive guy, of course, the most important position is quarterback. That's what scores points. That's what wins games. And at the end of the day, what he did was, you know, Gunnar was his guy both seasons. And the thing about that was, even though there was some competitive battles in between, the fact of what he did at Troy with Gunnar, allowing him to do what he did, and like I said before, there were quarterback battles. He allowed him. Gunnar was the clear favorite, not just because upperclassman status, whatever the case might be. You look at the situation at Tulane. Okay. Coming into Tulane, you had a lot of standouts, right? You had Ty Thompson. He was a transfer from Oregon, I believe. You had a veteran there who's already there in Kai Horton. And the next thing you know, you've got Darian Mensah, who came out of nowhere, right? For all intents and purposes, was third string on the depth chart. He came, moonshotted all his way to the starting spot, of course, before Retzlaff took over. But it's things like that that we're seeing, especially in the quarterback position. Sumrall looks at all the players, he looks at the film, and he says, you know what? Who is the best guy on the field? Period. And that's it. And I think it's really pertinent. That's the approach he's taken, and that is the approach he's going to take when looking at B. I think you and I were talking the other day, and I sent you something, and Summerall and Dave Caldwell were involved. We're in an interview, whatever the case might be, and um, when asked about NIL and the money and the profit sharing and all that stuff, they both came out and said very candidly, the best 22 are going to play. Period.
Hmm.
And that's the main thing that I think his competitive spirit, his edge, his demeanor, all those things involved. Someone could be an upperclassman. Someone could be a hometown favorite, whatever the case might be. It doesn't matter. Summerall's going to have a tough conversation with them and say, listen, you're the name here. You're the dude here. You're this, but guess what? I need you to show up in practice. I need you to show up on Saturdays. Because if you don't, that name on the back of the jersey is not going to get you to play, or the fact that you're a super senior, that's not going to get you to play.
Yep.
And I love that attitude about him there.
Yeah, and I think that's easy to say, right? The question, and I think we're trying to answer here is that what he actually does, right? I think there's a lot of coaches that say, "Well, the best guys are going to play," right? And we've seen time and time and time again ad nauseum, right, throughout Florida's history, that just isn't what always happens, right?
Hmm.
It just isn't. In a lot of cases, it isn't. We have significant question marks now, and I feel like I'm hearing more and more rumblings every day about Lagway starting last year and whether or not that even should have happened in terms of his health, right? And this isn't any kind of knock about the comments he made or any kind of stuff that was going on in his head. It's was he healthy enough to even start? Right? And yet he did, right? You got Spurrier talking about did he have a contract clause that said he had to? I don't know. Ball coach might just be throwing out some stuff. Then again, maybe he knows something we don't. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. But the point being is that, we have seen many times where they're just head scratchers, right? That come out, and we're like, why is this guy playing? Don't even be started on the previous regime. I'll say Napier was better about it than the previous regime was. Mullen, buddy, did he make some blunders of starters and guys that shouldn't have been playing versus guys he had on his bench. Oh, that was a struggle bus for me when we weren't doing a pod then, obviously, but man, if we had been, I'd have been visor throwing my hat all over the place on that stuff. It was bad. It was bad. So anyway, I think again, it's easy to say, proof's in the pudding, right? So you made a couple great points. I think the quarterback is the easiest thing to highlight here, and the easiest thing to look back on. You mentioned Gunnar Watson. I'll go a little deeper with that one. So when he came in, he retained Gunnar, and there was also a transfer that came in that season for Troy. Gunnar didn't have the greatest season, and he did share a little bit of reps, but he was predominantly the starter. I think he actually started every game, but even if he didn't, he certainly played the most reps. His season stats for 2022, as per ESPN, were 206 out of 335 for 2,818 yards, 14 TDs, and 12 picks. 138.8 passer rating, college passer rating, not the NFL like we normally do in our week to week. But this is not spectacular, right? And yet John saw fit to try and keep him there, right? Retained him, got him to come back for 2023, and interestingly enough, he goes 267 for 438, 3,569 passing yards, 27 TDs, and 6 picks. Now that's per Wikipedia, but nonetheless, that is quite the transition year over year, right? Much more impressive in terms of those stats. So definitely a strong improvement, and clearly a guy you wanted to hold on to and you wanted to be your starter based on the performance that you see here, right? You also obviously had back-to-back conference title seasons, right? Won the conference title both years at Troy, lost it the first year at Tulane, and won it again. We'll get into that later. But regardless, the point being is that's a strong player. You already also mentioned Mensah as he moved on to Tulane. This one is the one that really stood out to me. When he gets there in 2024, Darian Mensah is the third string quarterback. He had previously redshirted the year before, and he is the third string quarterback. I will say that again. Sumrall sees the performance in camp, evaluates all his quarterbacks on the roster, and gives Mensah the starting job from the third string. And Mensah responds by going 2,723 yards and 22 touchdowns, getting to the American Conference Championship game. They did not win that year. And then, of course, getting to the Gatsby Bowl against Florida, where he then transferred and did not play. And that's where Ty Thompson came in and looked like absolute garbage. So even though Ty Thompson was the higher rated recruit by far, the higher rated recruit with the potentially higher ceiling, whatever the case might be, Mensah was clearly the better player. He then, of course, went to Duke, won the ACC somehow, which made zero sense if you know how that went down with 4 losses. Bizarro world last year in the ACC. And then, of course, now has transferred to Miami with a ludicrous NIL contract that's being rumored at somewhere around $10 million. So, having said all of that, it's really interesting because he has always shown a propensity to give the guy who had the best, or demonstrated, I guess I should say, the best ability to perform, certainly at quarterback, though I would argue there's other positions where this was true as well, and given that person the opportunity to see the field. To summarize all this, and I know I said it's easier to say it than to do it, but he was recently quoted, as I think you mentioned with Caldwell in an interview, saying the best 22 are going to play, period, right? And that to me is, when you look at his history, I think you can believe it. I know I said it's easier to say, but if you If you look at the history, the facts back it up, right? That's what we're all about here. That's what we always try to do, is provide data that shows that, whatever is being said or whatever we see is true, right? That's what we want to go back and see. And from everything that I can see, that backs it up. So I alluded to this a minute ago. What kind of success has that led to? Well, we'll start with the conference championships, right? He won 3 conference championships as a head coach previously, made it to all 4 of his conference title games every year that he could, right? So far as a head coach, twice in the Sun Belt, twice in the American. Granted, none of that's the SEC, and we're not saying that it is. Let me be very clear. However, he clearly had success at the level he was at. He also had 23 victories at Troy across the 22 and 23 seasons, which were tied for the 3rd most nationally, trailing only Georgia, Michigan, and Washington. Troy and Michigan were the only 2 programs to win conference titles in both seasons for 22 and 23. Fun little facts for you there. Sumrall was also named the Sun Belt Conference Coach of the Year and was twice a finalist for Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year overall. And that is per FloridaGators.com, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So just a little interesting stat there. Additionally, we know John is a defensive-minded coach. So I wanted to look at, okay, how did the defensive ranks look during these different seasons at these different programs? So in 2022 at Troy, his defense in scoring defense, right? Call it total defense, whatever you want to call it, but scoring defense is the metric. He ranked 8th nationally, 8th, top 10. 2023 at Troy, he followed that up with 10th nationally. Pretty impressive stuff. But I will say that's Sun Belt. We know Sun Belt competition isn't the same as other leagues. He graduates up to the American, little tougher competition, still not the SEC, but it is harder than the Sun Belt. He goes 24th nationally his first season there. And then in 25 actually falls off despite making the conference title game and winning it and making the playoff. He falls off to 58th nationally in scoring ranking. However, for context, he lost 20 players to the transfer portal, 20 players after the 2024 season. And a lot of them significant, not the least of which was Mensa. He lost some significant players to like major schools. Duke, there was Duke transfer, obviously, with Mensa. He lost a player to Miami. Like, he wasn't losing them to Sun Belt and AAC schools. He was losing them to Power 4 schools. So he had some significant players with talent that he was showcasing and doing a lot with. So obviously has shown success with the personnel decisions he's made. So get your thoughts on that piece of it. Did I lose you, Randy? I think you're on mute.
There it is. Here we go.
Hey, holy, you're back. Smokes. First time podcasting. How you doing?
I tell you what, there's only so much. I know we did go through Gitch. Do me a favor and revamp that last section for me.
Which part?
Or do you have a question for me?
Oh, yeah. I was just asking what your thoughts were on the kind of success that he had, with these personnel decisions. Sorry, I didn't know I lost you there.
Yeah, no, it's okay. That's what happens when you're recording on the live and technology decides to show up or
to say bye-bye. Yeah, we're gonna see if going to video will fix this with different software. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. But yeah, so no, I was just wanting get your thoughts on what kind of success or the success that he's had and get your thoughts on that after all those stats I just rattled off. If you heard them all, hopefully you did.
I did. Well, I heard enough. Let's just say that. So first of all, I think I mentioned this before. Sumrall has limited coaching tenure. Okay.
Yes.
4 years. That's it. 22, 23, 24, and 25. And at the end of the day, when he came into Troy, he did inherit an absolute rebuild. It was tough. He had to do what he had to do, roll his sleeves up, whatever the case might be. They come out in 2022 as Sun Belt Conference champions. I know, Sun Belt, whatever. It is what it is. Sun Belt Billy, Sun Belt Sumrall. For some reason, whatever, Sun Belt Sumrall doesn't sound half bad. But anyways, Sun Belt Conference champions, and then repeated in 23 Sun Belt Conference champions. came to Tulane. Tulane was such a different situation because they had some success. You don't really need to do a whole lot, just another notch or two on the belt to get them up to a more national prominence. Because for those of you who don't remember, way back, Tulane was actually a founding member of the SEC. Talk about a fun
Right.
fact. But anyways, um, the fact that they reached the AAC, yeah, there you go, the AAC
Yep.
championship.
Right.
They didn't win it, but again, I don't think anybody expected Mensa to get the job at all, at all. And so I like what you said there as far as who he had coming in, who was a projected starter, and the fact of the matter is, if Mensa showed him something, clearly he goes, you know what, that guy's got to be on the field. It's got to be. How many times in the past have we looked at a Gator quarterback or, for example, when Emory Jones was on the field? How many times did we see Trey Dean on the field going, there's got to be somebody better than Trey
Mhm.
Dean? How many times have we seen Amari Burney on the field? Like,
Do it.
that's the best we have. Are you serious? And it seems like Sumrall, with the chip on his shoulder and everything else that he does, to look at guys, to talk to them in a certain way that challenges them, that whatever he's able to do with this blue chip mindset, blue collar mindset, get the most out of them, he clearly has been able to produce results. Now, again, Sun Belt Conference Championship, American Athletic Conference Championship, even though they didn't win it in 24, they won it in 25. The fact
Right.
of the matter is, he's been able to do so much more with less.
Right.
So much
And
more.
and consistently too.
And consistently. I like the defensive stats that you put in there. Yes, he had the drop off. He had a lot of attrition. That was what it was. But because he's been able to do so much with less, now, what does Summerall do with more?
Yeah, it is interesting to see for sure.
Right? For
Um,
in his mind, he's probably thinking, man, I don't have to recruit here. Look at this place. Look at the facilities. Look at the weather. This place is great for recruiting. It's not going to be hard to recruit. And he's thinking in the back of his
Clearly
head, like,
not.
right? Like, oh boy, he's thinking his head first world problems, man. You know?
Yep.
So
Certainly what it seems like.
exactly. So hope again, we know what he said on the podium. We have said it to the end, but if this is the type of success he can have, consistent, measurable success with, and this is not a knock, arguably not the nation's top players, not the top recruits, that blue collar mindset.
Yeah, I have some context for that in a minute, but continue.
Nice. I figured you would. But given that and understanding how he challenges players, how he talks to players, and I love what he says about having great coaches, right? A great team is not coach led. A great team is player led. A good team is
Right.
coach led.
Yep.
And that's the biggest difference. He understands how to get the most out of what he's got on the field. Love that.
Yep. For sure. All right. So to what you just said, good transition. How
Yeah.
has he been able to get the most out of the personnel on the field? So,
Yes. How?
yep. So let's talk about what he's done in the past and both with the players and the staff, right? What has he done historically, and what do we expect that he will be able to do as well? We can kind of fast forward this a little bit moving forward too. What do we look for him to be able to do as well moving forward? Go ahead, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So he comes into a situation in the SEC, a premier school. Listen, regardless of what has happened, what has transpired at Florida over the past 15 years, regardless, it's a premier school, it's a premier location, it has all of the makings to be right back up there at the top where it was 15 plus years ago. Okay. Now he's got a GM. Now he's got a very hefty budget. Okay. He's got a budget. We know about the NIL deal that was cleared. We know schools have up to 22 million to pay. Well, in addition to that 22 million, there's other endorsements. There's other deals that could take place. Fine, whatever it is. We already talked about the facility and this place being what it is. The other thing that I love, the fact of he says he doesn't have to go too far. Okay. Staying close to Florida, right here in our backyard. He's shown that on the recruiting trail. That's been great. The other thing that I like what Sumrall's been able to do is, and he said this, he's not going to hire friends, this, that, and the other. He's going to hire the most effective people. Well, I'll tell you what, one of his, we know about Brad White. We know Caldwell's coming as GM. That's fine. Um, and all the other personnel that has come from that. We know he did retain Chapman from the previous staff. That's great. But when you see what he's done in the strength and training department with Witt, that I think is what's going to set us apart moving forward. Because when you look at conditioning in the SEC, conditioning, weight training, that is paramount. The other thing about Summerall, the way that he's been able to recruit and the way that he has gone through and challenged, besides the recruiting trail, the way that he has gone through and challenged all the players in the building that have currently stayed. And obviously we talked about the five that came back and the newcomers to the team. Summerall has done something to ignite, to challenge. He pokes, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He pokes in a good way. He challenges. If you look at the players who left this team, most notably our starting quarterback from last year, he was challenged and he did not rise to that challenge. Regardless of injury, regardless of anything else, there was a direct challenge, and guess what? Couldn't rise. There are going to be guys on this field, on this team right now that have been challenged, right? Ben, you've talked about it.
Yep.
LJ was challenged in a big, big way. And guess what? He could have said, you know what? I was a perennial top recruit. I was this, I was that. I was laden by injury. I can go somewhere else and play and start, no questions asked. He decided to stay and be a leader and tough it out. So what I'm trying to say is Sumrall gets the most out of his personnel because he understands how players think, he understands what motivates them, and he understands how to challenge them in the best way possible to get the most around him. And that is a direct translation to what he does with his staff, especially when it comes to the expectations of what it takes, not just to play and coach here, but to win here and to bring this orange and blue back to national province.
Yeah, no, it's that's well said. And I think that's a really good look at the potential, at least, that we have going forward, and hopefully that will live up. Obviously,
Sure.
until we see something we don't know, and we're not trying to pump sunshine here. We've said that before many times. We're just trying to examine what we see and where it could go. Doesn't mean it will. And I think that's important that we continue to ground that, right, and look at it moving forward. So, all right. So yeah. So looking historically, as I mentioned, I've got some stats here for perspective to look at the talent, because you mentioned he was doing more with less, right?
Yes, yes,
We
give
look
it to me.
at the team talent composite ratings, which are done by 247. On3 does not do them, so we use 247 for this. The team talent composite ratings that we had for the past 4 seasons for his teams. In 2024, he was working with the 68th most talented team at Tulane, made the college football playoff with it. In 22 or 24, excuse me, he was working with the 62nd most talented squad. In 2023 at Troy, he had the 102nd most talented squad. And in 2022, the 98th most talented squad. Again, as per the 247 talent composite rankings. So just interesting perspective to show that he
Ceiling
can
was
really
high.
maximize and get the most out of that. So again, I want to point out that those 98th and 102nd rosters both had a top 10 scoring defense. Now, again, I know it's not against same level of competition. Clearly, we know that. However,
Mm-hmm.
still pretty good for not a great roster. Keep in mind, there are only 126 or so varies every year. It's 124 some years, 125, 126, something in that neighborhood. FBS football teams. So this was near the bottom in terms of roster talent, and yet was very near the top in terms of scoring defense. So
Oh
just
yeah.
very interesting there. Looking forward, I'm going to make this about the staff in terms of looking forward, though I do think that, potentially the defense obviously has obviously opportunity to get more out of it for sure based on the history and things we've looked at.
Yeah.
But I obviously am going to point here again to Faulkner and what I think his potential is to get the most out of the offense here. You want to talk about the sleeping giant, right? Sumrall has referenced this, right? Talking about
Yes.
we need to wake up the sleeping giant. I think the sleeping giant that might need to be woke up is the Gator offense because it's been asleep for a while. Trask obviously woke it up for a little bit there, but really it was still only one-sided there. If we can wake up both the run game and the pass game here and actually use both of those things and get it looking like a machine again on the offensive side of the ball and have a defense to go along with it, because that was obviously the problem in 2020 is the third and Grantham. I went back and watched some of those highlights, man, the other night. It was
Oh,
so brutal. We would shut teams down on first and second down and then give up third and 12 just over and over and over again. It was brutal. It's so hard to watch.
PTSD. Yeah.
Don't ask me why I did it, but I was watching game film and I was like, oh man, this sucks. It was so bad. But so if we could have just a competent defense, and which I think we will, and maybe better, but and then knowing Faulkner's potential here, oh my goodness. I mean, this could really be something, man. It really could be. So it will be very interesting to see what that looks like, and if we cannot get a pretty good and decent amount out of what we've got potentially going on here with these additions and obviously Summerall's personnel decisions, and then of course getting hopefully the most out of those players once the decisions have been made of who those starters are. So we intend to have a pod later in the year as we get closer to the start of the season, kind of look at fall camp, try to get some intel from that, try to determine who we really think the starters are going to be, because it's certainly not clear right now in a lot of ways at certain positions. So we will try to break all that down and figure that out, and we'll go from there. So with that, let's transition over to recruiting. You want to start us off and talk a little about our first offensive line addition in Peyton Miller here?
Let's do that. I will add one other thing though to that
Oh yeah,
last
go
point
ahead.
is I think one of the things that we've underestimated in Summerall, and well, let me rephrase that. I've underestimated is sometimes impatience can be construed as a bad thing.
Yep.
Most of the times, impatience is a bad thing. But when you look at Sumrall and what he is trying to do, again, we know the line. You had one job, right? He understands the job. He understands the mission. He understands the history. He understands the pageantry. He understands the expectation. And that's why he wants to win now. He believes he can win now. He doesn't think it's going to take 4 or 5 years. He wants to do it now. And so when you have that level of impatience, and you're on the field with 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds trying to get them to heat into this mission, guys, it's either you're gone or we're going, period. That's not a bad thing. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a bad thing. And that's part of the reason why I believe you had some of the departures we had, notably last year's quarterback, starting quarterback. It is what it is. But that level of impatience drives so much productivity. I think
Yep.
that's good, probably one of his biggest traits that you're going to see shine here. Let me rephrase that. I hope to see it shine in the results on the field on Saturday. Okay, to that end, to that end, Peyton Miller, folks. Again, John Sumrall recruiting train staying hot. Peyton Miller, interior offensive lineman, of course, direct contact, Mr. Phil Troutwain, 4-star, 91.85 overall. Mr. Miller is 6'5", 290 pounds, national rank 130. In the interior offensive lineman room, he's number 10. And in the state of Texas, ranked number 17. He was pursued by Texas Tech, Texas, TMU, SMU, and Clemson University. Mr. Peyton Miller, first on the board.
Yes, very nice. No, this is a nice get. A lot of rankings have him as the top center in this class, depending on where you look. So,
Yes,
yeah, really good stuff here for sure. I think this is definitely a good one, without question. So we'll see where it goes. But it's yet another great get for Big Philly style.
great
That's the
get.
new name, man. That's the new name for sure.
I like
The
it.
guy is absolutely killing it, and we'll have another one on that list in a minute here. But on to the next for now, which is going to be wide receiver Anthony Jennings, another commit again since the last time we did this. He is a four-star out of Dillard in Fort Lauderdale. His national ranking is 291, wide receiver 44, Florida 26 in terms of state ranking. This is as per the on three or rivals now, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
either or, right? Um, as the consensus, that's the industry rankings for that. And he is a pretty speedy wide receiver, as most of the gets I feel like are for Sumrall, though not as fast. I think is one of the other ones that he got on the roster. Though I have to check that because there's one that we landed that is like track speed certified, like a 4.3, but it might be Jennings. I might be getting my ducks crossed on that. Let me look at my list on that and see. But
Go
the
back and check because I had Jennings as well because the main contact for Jennings was Faulkner. And Faulkner was one who really saw him and saw his speed. It was like 5'11", 162, and he
It
does
is.
that.
It
Okay.
is Jennings. Yeah, he's lightning fast. It is
Yep,
him.
I
Yeah,
can
he's like
use
four.
that.
It's like 4.340 speed. I'm sorry, I had my notes crossed on it. Yeah, he's like 4.340 speed. He is
There
lightning
you go.
fast. Yeah, very very nice pickup there. Again, just more speed for the fire, assuming it holds. Now, all these guys just commits. They're not signed, right? So that's why we're not doing any kind of deep dive breakdown on this.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. So next up, you get another O lineman. Give me Hutchinson.
Nice. Elijah Hutchinson. Here we go, baby. Another four-star, perennial four-star in the group. 92.69 overall. Offensive tackle, 6'6", 256 pounds, ranking nationally 91, top 100. In the offensive tackle space, number 7 in the state of Virginia, 2 coming out of North Cross High School, Roanoke, Virginia, pursued by Clemson, Virginia Tech, Alabama, and Tennessee. Great get, great. Oh, his footwork, very, very good with the hands, very agile, very mobile for 6'6", 256.
Yeah, really nice get again with Phil. So to sum it up, you've got a premier center, a
Yep.
premier tackle, and just a premier all-around player, of course, in Hiller, who we already discussed, five-star plus kid who can play any position you want him to, honestly, tackle, guard, whatever. So now you've got three killer pieces to add to the line here, all right around top 100 guys. Obviously, two that are right around that 100 mark. Peyton just over, Elijah just under, and then Hiller is of course top five.
Yep.
So really, really great stuff here. Building in the trenches, building in the trenches, building in the trenches. I mean, just the evidence is all over it in this class on both sides of the ball, but particularly the O line, which we need. Let's get real. We'll talk more about that probably in a future pod, but we got to get this O line shaped up, and this is the way to do it is building through recruiting for sure.
Yes, sir.
And it's really a good look here that we're putting out. So with that, on to the next, we have some running back talent in one Andrew Beard out of Bogart, Georgia, who actually had ties to the University of Georgia as well, but committed to Florida.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
love that. He is ranked a 91.37 four-star, 165 nationally, again on the industry average for our rival slash on three, ninth at his position, 18th in the state. So let's review what we just said about these recruits that we just went over.
Mm-hmm.
For Miller, he was 10th at his position. For Hutchinson, 7th at his, and Beard, ninth at his. Now, I know Jennings was not in the top 10, but three of the last four we went through, top 10 at their positions.
Yes.
Pretty impressive stuff. Pretty impressive stuff. Beard is 5'9", 195 out of Prince Avenue Christian. solid get it running back. It was mentioned on something I was listening to or read, I don't remember now, that we kind of missed at running back last year. And that's okay because our room is so deep, but we couldn't afford to miss this year on it. We needed to get one
Hmm.
in the pipeline, a young kid that was coming up, and this is definitely that kid. Strong looking candidate here at running back. Kid looks really good. I think has a lot of potential, runs with a good amount of power, but also has plenty of speed. It'd be a nice combination back as he continues to develop, puts a little weight on, probably ends up, a little around 205, 210, something in that neighborhood, I would imagine, after Rusty gets done with him in the weight room. So there you
Oh
go.
yeah,
On to the next.
definitely. Where do you want to go from here? Because I know we've got a couple of 3 stars in the making.
I think we got Kumaju.
That's right. Steve Bentley Kiomaju, SBK. There we go. Your 3 star, 88.03 overall defensive lineman. Main contact there, Gerald Chapman. Thank you, Coach Chap. 6'3", 295. Nationally, again, 3 star, number 476. In the defensive lineman class, number 48. And out of the state of Florida, 41. Coming out of Coral Gables High School. Coral
Yep, picked
Gables, you
him
say?
right out of
Where
Miami's
is that?
backyard. Right out of
Oh,
Miami's backyard.
Miami's in Coral Gables. Yeah, that's right. Pursued by Miami,
Yep.
Auburn, Georgia, the Poodles, and Timu. Yeah, no thank you.
Good stuff. All right. Next on the list is one Caleb Dillard, or excuse
Yes.
me, Caleb Dillard, excuse
Khalib.
me, mispronunciation on my part. 6'2", 170 safety out of Oklahoma. He is an 88.02 3-star, ranked 477 nationally, 41 at the position, and 12th in the state. I think with both SBK and Mr. Dillard here, you have a lot of upside in both of these guys. They're probably better than their ranking currently. We'll see how the rankings revised now that they've committed to
Mm-hmm.
Florida. If history holds, their ranking will go down rather than up because that just seems to be what happens with our commits. But hey, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's remarkable how that seems to happen. But
right.
regardless, I do think that both of these guys show a tremendous amount of upside. This kid is a hitter. He is a physical safety. He wants the contact big time. Definitely think we got some work to do there in coverage, but this is an interesting version of what we're going to see at safety. I think this is a kid that really matches Sumrall's personality and maybe Brad White's too. He wants to come hit somebody. So excited to watch him develop and see if he can get in the rotation and within a year or two and what that looks like. All right, on to the next, Mr. Tommy Douglas.
Tommy Douglas. It's a real good Irish name, coming out of Boston. Yeah, exactly. Come out of Princeton, New Jersey. 3 star, 86 overall, a tight end, 6'5", 235. Nationally, 698. In the tight end room, number 35. But in the state of New Jersey, 19. Coming out of Hun School Prep, out of Princeton, New Jersey, pursued by Penn State, Vandy, Alabama, USC. Probably one of Tommy's biggest attributes, soft hands. There you go.
Yeah, for sure. And this was an interesting one because even though his ranking is lower, you see the schools he was pursued by. Ohio State wanted this kid, and we got him. That tells you all you need to know. So
Hmm.
if Ohio State wants him, he can play, right? They recruit as well as anybody in the country, and they do that for a reason. So, all right, last but certainly not least, Devon
Yeah.
Kendrick out of Carrollwood Day in Tampa, a historically strong school for production. 6'4", 300 defensive lineman, 85 overall rank, 3-star. He's 846 nationally, 80 at his position, 91st in the state for now. I will be shocked if this ranking doesn't go up. Looking at this kid on film, he's explosive. He's got a lot of power despite the 300-pound frame. Like he can make some stuff happen. I think this is because he's a little raw, a little underdeveloped. I think if he has a good senior year, which I
Hmm.
expect him to, this needle will move up. If honestly, it's one we may have trouble holding on to if I'm going to be real about it, because I think his uh, they're not saying anything about UF. I just think that I just think he's going to get a lot of attention if I'm right about his development. We'll see if it happens that way, but
Yeah.
regardless, uh, kid looks like he can play to me. I think he's just a little raw, and once that gets a little more refined, it could be a good talent. And as we've seen before, 6'4", 6'5", 300 plus pounds, they don't just grow on trees out there. There's not a ton of those kids out there, especially in high school. So yeah, but we'll see what happens. So with that, those are your recruits that have committed to UF in the last 2 weeks. It's
For
ridiculous.
a national
Absolutely.
rank of
Yes.
seventh B.
Seventh on three, fifth on 247, which we're never
Yeah,
higher on 247 than we on and on three, but we are right
well
now,
said.
which is pretty wild, pretty wild. We are cooking, to say the least. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if it holds. We'll see who else we get, because there's a bunch of rumors about other ones coming in the pipeline here. We're not even to official visit season. That's coming up here in the next month or so. So we'll see what happens as we get into June and July. That's when this stuff really usually starts to pop. So the fact that we're cooking this hot right now, man, it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see. So with that, I think we will close things up here and wrap up. Our next pod will be in 2 weeks on the 26th, Tuesday the 26th, where we will be putting a spotlight on the under the radar players that will be returning for next season. So these are guys that were here last year that are likely going to play. Maybe they'll start, maybe they won't, but guys that we didn't necessarily hear as much from last year, but we think are definitely going to have an impact next season. So we are going to break that down, kind of look at some stats, look at some stuff from last year, but also look at some spring camp intel and kind of see, hey, these are guys who really popped. What could they do going into next season and potentially make an impact? So we were looking forward to doing that and kind of breaking that down for you all. So with that, I will turn it over to you for any closing thoughts and to sign us off.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be an interesting pod because I look at some of the players that we had last year. A lot didn't make up from a potential standpoint. A lot, I think a lot, especially when you look at it, the way Sumrall has approached these players and challenged them. I think you got a lot of guys who said, you know what, I probably didn't have the best year last year, or I'm coming back from injury, or what have you, and I got a lot to prove, and I
Yeah.
can go through this renaissance under Coach Sumrall, Coach White, Coach Faulkner, and do some things. And so that's going to be really, I'm really interested in taking a deep dive there. But overall, man, as always, enjoyed this one with you. This was neat, just kind of going through and taking a look at some of Summerall's past and seeing what we can glean from, if anything, to apply to the Gators moving forward. And again, we know we're going to know in 2 years whether or not Summerall is going to be the guy long term. However, we hope that he's the guy long term because clearly in his first few months in office, he has made a resounding footprint, and it is echoing through the SEC. It's echoing through FBS when you look at the recruiting and when you look at the unique style of the way he runs the team, and especially with a real overhauling strength and conditioning. I think that is going to be an absolute game changer. But at any rate, thank you all for listening, tuning in. If you like what you hear, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it, do whatever you want to do. But we're trying to get this word out there. Ben and I do this podcast purely for the love of Gator football, aka our form of therapy when things don't go right. So
Yes,
either
indeed.
way, love doing it. And also on the platform, if you guys can think of any topics, anything you want to hear from us, anything in particular, drop us a message, drop us a line. Happy to entertain any other topics.
Oh yeah,
Having
good
that been
call.
said, yeah, having that been said, wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around Gator Nation.